I actually started this landscape painting over a year ago. After a couple of painting sessions, I simply stopped working on it. There wasn't any major reason, I just got distracted with other paintings and other work. Then, the longer it sat unfinished in my studio, the more difficult it became to go back to it and finish it. I'm curious, have you ever done that? Let me know in the comments, because I can't be the only one. But the other week I decided to finally spend the time and get this painting finished. So in this video I'll show you exactly how I completed it, and I'll give you some tips on painting landscapes, how to paint trees, and how to create atmospheric depth in a painting. So first of all, let me just show you a couple of the reference photos I've used to create this artwork. This painting is inspired by a place called Glenorchy in southern New Zealand. It's surrounded by beautiful mountains, and there's lots of these European trees that have been planted in the area, especially Lombardy poplars, willows and other deciduous trees. There's also trees such as gums and pines and Douglas firs, so it makes for some really interesting subjects for a painting. So in this painting I wanted to make the stand of trees the main feature of the artwork, but also convey that atmospheric depth, and that's when we have distant landforms receding into the distance so they look further away. Now I'm painting on a 12" by 12" wooden panel, which I primed with some gesso. I just added a couple of layers, and I'm sketching out the composition here using burnt sienna mixed with a little pale drying gel medium, which helps to speed up the drying time. I'm using oil paints here, and the brand of paint I'm using is Blue Ridge Oils, and if you want to get some, I've put a link in the description box below. Now, if you've been following me for a while or watched any of my other painting tutorial videos, you'll know that I normally start my paintings by painting the dark values and shadows first. And I've found that this makes things a lot easier in terms of creating a tonal framework for your painting, where you can create tiers of depth and then paint the areas in light afterwards. So I'm painting the dark values first, and value is how light or dark your subject is. We'll find the darkest darks and the lightest lights in the foreground, and then with your distant landforms, darks aren't as dark and lights aren't as light. So if you focus on the shadows and dark values first, and I even include cloud shadows in this, it just makes it a lot easier to create those tiers of depth. So the darkest darks in this case are within the trees, and that's also because they tend to be some of the darkest values in the landscape anyway. And if you've read John Carlson's book Carlson's Guide to Landscape Painting, he simplified the whole landscape into 4 main zones, where he said the arch of the sky is some of the lightest values in the landscape, followed by the ground planes of the grass. The slanting planes of the mountains are getting darker, and then the upright planes of the trees are the darkest values in the landscape. I think these are really simple rules to remember, and I always think of my paintings in terms of value so that I can create that sense of depth and distance. Also, that way it doesn't matter so much if you don't have the exact right colour, you can get away with that. But if your values aren't working, then your whole painting's just going to look flat. So by now you can clearly see how the value structure is coming together in the painting. We've got the tree shadows here, the darkest values in the whole landscape. Then the landscape behind the trees in the midground and the background are getting lighter in value. So for example, those background mountains are a lot lighter in value compared with the trees in the foreground, and then the cloud shadows are lighter still. Now those mountains in the background, they often have a blue cast to them, especially in New Zealand. And for this I use a mix of ultramarine blue with a little burnt sienna, some titanium white and a little bit of alizarin crimson. To convey some of those grassy tones in the sides of the lower parts of the mountains, I also added a little bit of yellow ochre. But as I say, these mountains are in shadow, and overall they're going to have a blue cast to them. It just looks better in paintings as well in general. Now for the cloud shadows, I actually use the same colours that I use for the mountains, only the value is a lot lighter, but I'm still using ultramarine blue, burnt sienna to desaturate, some titanium white and a little alizarin crimson. By using similar colours throughout the painting, it's going to help with the colour harmony, so it means that the painting will read well to the viewer. When I initially started painting the shadows in the trees, I mainly used a combination of ultramarine blue with a little yellow ochre, which creates a really dark green and reduces the saturation of the blue. So this is how I start my shadows when I'm painting trees and foliage. I can then add other colours as well to create the effect of reflected light and some of the other greens that you get in shadow tones of trees and foliage. Now then, let's talk about another law that you'll find in painting and actually in nature in real life, is we'll generally find our most saturated or high chroma colours in the foreground of a landscape, and this is particularly true of the case when you're painting greens, especially in trees and grass and other foliage. However, when you start painting those greens in the distance, the intensity of the green drops out, so the colours become more desaturated, and this is really important when we're painting, because if I was to use as high a chroma greens as I have in these trees in the foreground here, but was to use those in the background, then it will just pull the background forward in the painting and we just lose that sense of atmosphere and depth. The painting would look pretty flat. So I'm reserving my most saturated colours for the foreground. Now for these greens, I generally used a mix of yellow ochre with ultramarine blue and cadmium yellow, and that creates my base green. I can then use a little titanium white to make the value of the green lighter, but that's also going to desaturate it as well, so that's something to keep in mind. Now another thing I can do is create some really rich emerald looking greens in these trees here by mixing in some phthalo green or some cobalt teal. And then I always round off my greens with a colour that contains red, which is opposite to green on the colour wheel. It just helps to make the greens look more organic and natural. Now then, if you're an artist that's struggling with your landscape painting, or you're just having difficulty getting to that next level with your painting, or even if you're a complete beginner, then check out my free landscape painting blueprint. Now one thing I've found with painting landscapes is it's really good to have a system to work towards, because then that helps you to create repeatable results in your painting, and that's what I demonstrate in my free landscape painting blueprint. Now if you want to get this, just click the link below and I'll send it over to you. Enjoy. Now then, back to the painting, and at this point I'd let it dry and I was working on the modelling stage of the painting. So this is where I'm starting to add some details and start refining some of the shapes and elements within the landscape. So when I block in a painting, I use the biggest brushes that I can get away with. That way I get some nice loose painterly gestural brush marks, and it's just helping to loosen up my painting anyway. I do like a bit of detail. I'm not really into hyperrealism, but I really like my paintings to have a looseness or an expressiveness to my brushwork. I think it implies confidence, and I certainly like this when I've seen other artists' paintings. So in the modelling stage, we're starting to add a bit of detail. We're adding lighter layers of paint as well, so I always keep my paintings a little darker to start with. Now at this point in the painting, I had put it down, and this was where it was sitting on my shelf in my studio for weeks, and then those weeks became months, and then I don't know why I was looking at this painting and I just thought, why is it I just can't seem to finish this at all? And I just left it for ages, and literally a year had passed, and then I thought, I've got to get this painting finished. I mean, I even started recording it for YouTube, so it needs to be done. And this has happened with a few of my paintings. I don't know why I start a load and then they can end up just getting left for a long time, but I don't like having unfinished paintings in my studio. So I brought the painting out, had a good look at it and thought, right, how can I finish this painting, get some impact in there as well, make those trees look three-dimensional and realistic. So let's talk about the trees a little bit. So one of the ways we can create realism is having that contrast between the lights and dark. So the darker shadows there contrasted against the areas of the light where the sunlight is hitting the side of the tree canopies. So I was using lighter layers of my green mix, which was pretty much the same greens that I mixed initially. For some of those more olive tones, for example in the gum tree here, I used a little bit more yellow ochre and perhaps a little bit more cadmium red light in that mix as well. But then it's a case of just building up lighter layers on top of existing darker ones and then saving those lightest lights until the very end of the painting. Now, another thing with painting landscapes, and in fact this goes for painting anything, but you can often sculpt elements of the scene by restating your dark values, so they definitely go a long way to building up the various forms in your painting. Now at this point I was adding my lightest light, so these could just be little highlights where the leaves are shimmering in the bright sunlight, and it just goes a long way to adding impact in your painting. I also added some highlights to some of the stems and branches within these trees. And then what I felt this New Zealand scene needed was some sheep. So I painted some sheep in the foreground here. That's just adding a little bit of life to the painting. So after procrastinating on this painting for so long, I'm really glad I got it finished because I was really pleased with the end result. So I hope you enjoyed this video and it inspires you to finish up some paintings that you might have sitting around in your studio. Don't forget your free landscape painting blueprint. I've put the link in the description box below. And if you want to learn more about painting trees, then check out this video here. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next video.